When I received the devastating news of my terminal diagnosis, I requested my spouse to capture a photograph of me. He responded with derision, saying, "I only photographed the deceased. Are you planning to pass away?" I affirmed with a solemn nod and earnestly stated, "Yes, soon. However, I have some specific requests for this farewell picture. Could you shoot it from a particular angle? My right side is more flattering. Some minor editing would also be appreciated." "Should I share my beauty filter presets with you?" he retorted mockingly. I glanced at my reflection in the mirror. My face had become gaunt, and my complexion was pallid. Without the looming end, I might have forgotten my passion for maintaining my appearance. The oncologist had given me no more than 30 days to live. If Adrian Lee were willing to take my final photo, I had certain preferences. His irritation only grew when he heard my requests. His voice, already impatient, turned cold. "If you're ill, seek treatment. If it's hopeless, find peace elsewhere." Even in death, he wouldn't offer an apology. My eyes welled up with tears, overwhelmed by bitterness. I had expected Adrian to offer some comfort upon learning of my condition. From the corner of my eye, I saw my daughter, Lily, sitting at the dining table, fixated on her cake without taking a bite. She had been eagerly anticipating her birthday today. Suppressing my sobs, I maintained a steady voice. "There's one more thing. Today is Lily's birthday. She hopes you'll come home so we can take a family photo together." Adrian clearly wanted to forget the date. Since Lily's birth, he had never once celebrated her birthday. A 10-second silence lingered on the other end of the call. "I have other commitments. No photo." It was another cold rejection. Clenching my fists, I whispered, "This could be our last." Beep, beep, beep. The call disconnected before I could finish. I stood there, clutching my phone, tears streaming uncontrollably. This might be the first and final family photo we'd ever take. Soft little hands wiped away the tears from my cheeks. Lily leaned in, concerned. "Mommy, why are you crying? Is it because I want Daddy to come back for the photo and Daddy said no? I won't ask again. Don't cry, Mommy." I looked at my 5-year-old daughter. She was sweet and obedient, rarely asking for anything except this one time. Since Adrian had been absent throughout her childhood, her kindergarten classmates teased her about not having a father. Those hurtful comments had wounded her young heart. She simply wanted a family photo to show she had a complete family. I had to honor her wish. At least in the time I had left, she wouldn't face ridicule because of our situation. Forcing a smile, I lifted Lily and kissed her. Daddy agreed. Mommy is crying because she's happy. Be good and stay home. I'll bring Daddy back. By the time I hailed a cab to Adrian's workplace, it had begun to drizzle. Without an umbrella, I was stopped by a security guard. "I'm Adrian's wife. Can you send someone up to verify?" I explained, looking disheveled. Since Adrian started his current job, I had only visited his office once, dragged out by him then. The guard remained silent, his stance firm. "Sophie?" 2 women emerged from inside, one giving me a slightly surprised look. My heart raced. One was a colleague of Adrian's. She offered a somewhat awkward smile. "Since you left last time, Adrian has instructed everyone not to let you in. If you want to see him, you need to schedule an appointment beforehand." The light rain soaked me, bringing an icy chill. I wiped the water from my face, trying to mask my anxiety. "I don't need an appointment. Please inform Adrian that I need to see him." A hint of disdain flashed in the woman's eyes. "All right then, wait here for a moment." She then instructed the guard, "Be vigilant. Don't let just anyone in." As she turned to leave, she began talking with her companion without concern. "That's her. So shameless. Who knows what she's done? Even her own husband won't deal with her." I waited downstairs for what felt like an eternity. The rain intensified, and my thin clothes clung to my frail body, fluttering in the strong wind. My body couldn't endure the torment. My temples throbbed, and my head felt like it was about to burst. My vision started to blur. Moments ago, I wondered if the person I spoke to hadn't informed Adrian of my presence. But now, the expression from upstairs made it clear. I looked up to see Adrian standing by the 3rd-floor window, detachedly observing everything below. Even from afar, I could imagine his expression, one of disgust and hatred. I sighed softly. I had hoped for at least a proper conversation with Adrian. Considering my impending death, I wished he wouldn't be so cruel to our daughter. After all, Lily would only have him as her sole guardian in the future, but I never anticipated not even getting a chance to speak with him. I forced a self-deprecating smile, unable to bear the internal pain any longer, my legs giving way as I stumbled. My vision blurred and I felt disoriented. If I fell now, splashing muddy rainwater would make me a spectacle. Just as I was about to collapse, a hand supported me. An umbrella appeared overhead. "Are you all right?" Daniel, Lily's teacher and a longtime friend, looked at me with concern. Occasionally, when I had to visit the hospital for checkups, he would take Lily home. He also cared for her at kindergarten. To prevent him from thinking we were negligent parents, I needed to disclose my illness. I lacked the strength, feeling so miserable that cold sweat beaded on my forehead, and my lips were pale. The gaze from upstairs seemed to pierce through me. When I looked up again, Adrian was no longer there. Perhaps he didn't want to see me. Forget it. I needed to take my medication first. Luckily, I had brought it with me when I left home. I shook my head slightly and bent over to retrieve the pills from my bag. Daniel realized I couldn't speak at the moment and patiently held the umbrella for me, explaining, "Today is Lily's birthday. I went to your house to give her a gift, and she mentioned you went out without an umbrella and asked me to bring you one." Adrian had come downstairs unnoticed, holding an umbrella and standing not far from Daniel and me. His gaze fixed on Daniel's hand supporting my shoulder. A flash of hostility crossed his eyes. "Well, you just brought warmth to my doorstep." Startled by him, my hand trembled, and the pill bottle I had just found fell to the ground. It rolled towards Adrian's feet. He glanced at the bottle and impatiently kicked it with his shoe. "If you're going to pretend to be sick, at least make it believable. Acting like you're half dead and taking vitamins." I wasn't aware that vitamins could cure illnesses. To prevent Lily from overthinking if she saw the medicine, I had replaced all the bottles with vitamin containers. Adrian was unaware, but Daniel was fully aware. He was somewhat angered, shoving the umbrella into my hand and approaching Adrian after ensuring I was steady. "Mr. Lee, she's ill and can't get wet. If you don't want me to bring warmth, then please fulfill your responsibilities as her husband." Adrian stared at him, his eyes cold and devoid of emotion. After a few seconds of silence, he sneered, "Sophie, oh Sophie, you're still so good at acting. Even now someone believes you." I stood under the umbrella, teetering in the rain. Hearing his words, the color drained from my face. My illness had struck fiercely, making it difficult to diagnose. The first time it hit, I collapsed in pain, unable to rise, blood covering my face. Lily was terrified and called Adrian using my phone. A child understands nothing, thinking that a lot of blood signifies death. "Daddy, Mommy is bleeding a lot. Please save her. Lily can't be without Mommy." It must have sounded too dire, like I was about to die at any moment. Adrian rushed home, running several red lights, trembling as he picked me up, his eyes filled with tears. At that moment, I felt a sense of relief, believing he didn't entirely despise me. I asked him if I were to die. Could he stop hating Lily and take good care of her? He hugged me tightly, almost frantically. "Sophie, I don't hate you. You can't die." But when we arrived at the hospital, the tests revealed nothing significant. The doctor suggested it might just be nosebleeds caused by dryness. The pain in my head was unbearable, and I sensed something was wrong, asking the doctor if further tests were necessary. In Adrian's eyes, it was all an act. He believed I had deliberately made myself appear this way, even conspiring with Lily to deceive him. His voice was dark and harsh. "Enough. Your acting only makes me despise you more. Even if you do die somewhere, don't inform me. I find it infuriating." He thought I was lying again, this time about needing a memorial photo. I blinked, trying to keep my tears from being too evident. The heavy rain poured down as Adrian and Daniel stood off against each other. Suddenly, Adrian picked up the pill bottle from the ground and twisted off the cap. "Are you insane?" Daniel was shocked, attempting to reach out and stop him. Adrian dodged and poured all the pills onto the ground. The white pills dissolved in the rainwater, gradually washing away. I stared blankly at his actions. A deep, wrinkled pain gripped my heart like a gaping wound bleeding uncontrollably. He seemed oblivious to the extent of his actions, ignoring Daniel and walked toward me with the umbrella. He smiled, but it was filled with malice. "Aren't you looking for me? Let's go. If you die in such heavy rain, who will take your picture? I really don't want to." His words felt like sharp knives cutting deep into my flesh. I exhaled hot breath, trying to suppress the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. I returned the umbrella to Daniel. "Thank you, but I'm already soaked and the umbrella is useless now." Daniel frowned, wanting to say something but hesitated. Adrian was already impatient, gripping my wrist tightly. His strength was so immense that it felt like he might break my wrist. I winced in pain. He seemed to notice the thinness of my wrist, pausing slightly. Something seemed to shift in his mind, a moment of realization in his eyes. He forcefully shoved me into the car and slammed the door. "Sophie, we're not divorced yet, and you're seeing someone else, making yourself appear pitiful, hoping I'll let you be together." I slumped weakly in the seat. "No, he's Lily's teacher." "Ha," Adrian sneered. He seemed to want to say more, but my head was spinning and I couldn't catch his words. Probably more cold and harsh remarks. Nothing good ever came from his mouth. The car drove toward the outskirts, moving further away from home. The road became bumpier. This isn't the way home. Lily is still waiting for me. Today is her birthday. I forced a few words out of my throat with difficulty. Adrian looked at me through the mirror, the hatred in his eyes sending chills down my spine. He said, "None of us deserve to be happy today." My heart tightened. I understood his meaning. The car fell into silence. The heavy rain pounded the windows, creating an irritating noise, taking me back to that dark summer. Adrian and I had met in college. He was studying photography and always carried his camera, capturing moments. One night, I went out with friends off campus and stayed past the school curfew. My roommate messaged me about a dorm inspection that night. Fortunately, there was a 2-meter-high wall at the back of the school that students often climbed over without getting caught. I hurried back, timing my return perfectly, and pushed off with my feet. As I leaped onto the wall, I heard a click and a flash of white light. I had only one thought. Oh no, I've been caught. Startled, I lost my footing and missed the wall, falling straight down. Not only would I get caught and lose points, but I'd also get injured. Just as I was about to cry from despair, Adrian caught me below. We both fell to the ground, his camera rolling to the side. I rubbed my arm and stood up, finally seeing clearly. It wasn't that I was caught. I had been unknowingly photographed by some inappropriate person. Nowadays, people taking pictures under skirts were so brazen. He looked quite handsome with a cold expression, but who knew he was so creepy inside? I crawled over and grabbed the camera, cursing, "You pervert!" But when I saw the photo, I was completely stunned. In the moonlight, a girl leaped over the wall, her black hair flying, revealing the right half of her face, her eyes sharp. It was an indescribably heroic sight. Adrian got up, dusted off his clothes, not angry, but rather blushing and apologizing. "I'm sorry. I just thought that moment was beautiful and wanted to capture it. I didn't mean to scare you." I realized I had misunderstood, but still righteously scolded him. Taking photos of girls in the middle of the night? Where's your sense of justice and morality? As compensation, you have to take more pictures for me. And so Adrian became my exclusive photographer. No matter where I went, he was always there with his camera, capturing my moments. In his lens and eyes, there was only me. Our mutual understanding and love were as beautiful as a romantic drama. After graduation, Adrian and I became financially stable, bought a house, and got married. For the 2 years we were married, he was always gentle and caring towards me. My parents divorced and neglected me, so he welcomed me into his family. Adrian's parents were wonderful. They never demanded anything and frequently brought me gifts and delicious food, treating me like their own daughter. Later, I became pregnant with Lily, and they moved in to take care of me. My constitution was weak, and the pregnancy was particularly torturous. I threw up everything I ate. A few nights before the due date, Adrian had to work late, saying that when he returned, he wanted to take a family photo to commemorate. But we never got that chance. Lily in my womb kept me awake, and I suddenly craved hot pot from a restaurant on the east side of town. Upon hearing this, Adrian's mother immediately grabbed his father and had him drive us there. We hadn't been out for more than 10 minutes when it started to pour. The windshield wipers squeaked as they worked rapidly. It was hard to see the road. At the intersection, a truck suddenly came rushing out. The massive size difference sent our car flying several meters away. Adrian's mother reacted quickly, shielding me with her body. In the car accident that night, Adrian's father died on the spot, and his mother, who had protected me, was impaled by a long shard of glass in her chest. She didn't survive the emergency surgery. I was so traumatized that I went into premature labor. When Adrian received the call from the police and rushed to the hospital, he was met with 2 bodies covered with white sheets and a nurse saying, "My condolences." He said nothing, red-eyed as he handled his parents' affairs personally, preparing their memorial photos. Lily's cries pierced through the silence of the hospital room. Her birth, once eagerly awaited, now went unnoticed. My tears had already soaked the pillow. I blamed myself, feeling heartbroken and constantly reflecting. If only I hadn't craved that hot pot from the east side of town. None of this would have happened. I was the one who caused their deaths. I suffered from postpartum depression and attempted to take my own life several times. If it weren't for Lily, that small bundle who would smile at me and grab my finger with her soft little hands. From the day Lily was born, Adrian began to deliberately avoid me. He couldn't face me or Lily. The man who once loved to photograph me no longer let me appear in his lens. He even changed jobs to specialize in taking memorial photos. At first, I tried to communicate and apologize, but he never responded, until he started coming home less and less. On Lily's first month, I knelt and begged him to come home and see his child crying hysterically. If you need to vent your anger, do it on me. Lily is just an innocent child. She deserves love from the moment she was born. Adrian, like a trapped beast, smashed everything around him, his bloodshot eyes bursting with deep-seated hatred for the first time. He too was hysterical, the veins on his forehead bulging. "What do you want me to do? Because of her birth, I lost my parents. How am I supposed to face you both? Do you want to drive me to death?" After that, Adrian's resentment towards me and Lily deepened. Once a loving couple, we now cursed each other with the harshest words. I leaned against the car window, closing my eyes. My breathing was slow and weak. The road became increasingly difficult, the bumps making me feel nauseous. "We've arrived." Adrian's cold voice pulled me out of my memories. I opened my eyes and saw that we were at a cemetery. Adrian's parents were buried here. During the funeral, Adrian didn't let me participate. He claimed I, the perpetrator, was unworthy. Now, why did he bring me here? In an instant, fear, guilt, and endless remorse overwhelmed me. I trembled, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. "No, don't. Please." Adrian ignored me, his eyes devoid of any affection as he opened the car door and dragged me out. The sky was overcast and I couldn't see the ground clearly. I almost stumbled. Adrian practically dragged me to his parents' graves. He released his grip, and I fell to my knees in front of their tombstones. My knees hit the stones hard. Adrian's voice mixed with the heavy rain above my head. "Didn't you want me to be with Lily on her birthday?" He paused, then like a demon pronounced, "This rain is my parents' punishment for you. You kneel here and repent. When the rain stops, it means they have forgiven you." I tried to support myself with my hands, failing several times to stand up. Finally, I could only kneel before Adrian's parents' tombstones. I didn't dare to look up. Their memorial photos were on the tombstones, their black and white faces seeming as if they would come out and question me at any moment. "Why did you crave that hot pot? Why did you cause trouble? We were killed because of you." I'm sorry, it's my fault. It's all my fault. I should be the one dead." I spoke hoarsely, my voice barely audible. Adrian squatted down, grabbed my hair, and forced me to look up, his face close to mine. The distance was very close, and I could hear his words clearly, one at a time. "The pain in my heart you will repay 1,000 times over." The pain from my scalp being pulled was nothing compared to the agony in my heart. I breathed rapidly, my lips moving without forming words. It was me. I ruined everything. Lily could have had a happy home and a loving father. Adrian could have had a joyful family. But I didn't mean to. I didn't know it would rain that day, Didn't know a truck would come out at the intersection. The suppressed grief in my heart surged like a raging sea. In an instant, I broke down. I burst into tears, the hot tears seeming more plentiful than the rain streaming down my face. Adrian was also soaked by the rain, watching me with cold indifference. After a long time, he seemed tired of everything before him, wanting to leave me there. The cemetery was remote, and at night, almost no cars passed by. Without medication to support me in my current condition, I would probably die here alone. My brain buzzed, losing the ability to think with only one thought remaining. Lily was still waiting for me at home. I couldn't die here. I reached out to grab Adrian's pant leg. My vision was blurry and I missed several times. "Don't go!" My voice was hoarse, barely audible. There was no response. My nose felt hot, and a metallic taste rose in my throat, impossible to suppress. If I could, I would rather it was me who died. Why are you doing this to me? Adrian, let me atone, okay? I'm about to die. I'll go apologize to them. Drip. Something dripped onto the ground, bright red and glaring. I was bleeding again. This time, there was more blood than ever before. Maybe today I would truly atone. My phone was still in Adrian's car, and I couldn't even say goodbye to Lily. I leaned quietly against the tombstone, feeling warmth leave my body. I didn't know how much time had passed, long enough that I almost fell asleep. Something cold covered my face, and someone was calling me. Again and again, urgently and bewilderedly. "Sophie, don't scare me." Adrian had returned. He carefully wiped the blood from my face, his hands trembling uncontrollably. I mechanically moved my eyes. The one who was about to die was me, yet he looked worse than I did. His panicked, shocked eyes clearly reflected my appearance. It was ugly. Not at all pretty. Adrian took off his jacket and covered me with it, completely at a loss, unsure if he could touch me. He anxiously made a phone call, probably to summon an ambulance. After hanging up, he ran to the car to get an umbrella. Holding the umbrella in one hand, he held my hand with the other. Two cold hands generating no warmth. He didn't speak again, just gripping the umbrella handle tightly. In this moment, we coexisted peacefully for the first time. No arguments, no hatred. Like a dream before death. So surreal it was frightening. I slowly lowered my head. No longer having the strength to look at him, I fell into darkness. Adrian called my name desperately. "Don't sleep, please don't sleep, Sophie." I seemed to be dreaming. In the dream, after I died, Adrian continued to ignore everything. Lily was left alone at home with no one to cook for her, no one to take her to school. A tiny girl, not even tall enough to reach the stove, stood on a stool to cook noodles. Too weak, she fell while scooping the noodles, tipping over the pot. Scalding hot water splashed all over her. Lily's fair little face turned red, tears falling like pearls from a broken necklace. "Mommy, where are you? It hurts so much. Mommy, I miss you so much. Didn't you promise to spend my birthday with me?" I suddenly woke up, sitting up in a cold sweat. My vision swam. The IV needle in the back of my hand and the strong smell of disinfectant reminded me I was still alive. "You're awake." Adrian sat next to me, his voice hoarse. It sounded like his throat was damaged, as if he hadn't had water in a long time. The sun was already up. Realizing I hadn't been home all night, I quickly asked, "Where is my phone?" I didn't know if Lily had eaten, if she was still waiting by that cake for Adrian and me. Sometimes Lily stayed home alone. I had installed a landline in her room for emergencies. Whenever something happened, she would call me. Adrian hesitated, not reaching for the phone. "Shouldn't you explain to me what's wrong with your health?" I was in a hurry and told the truth. "It's terminal. I have about a month left. That's why I asked you to take my memorial photo." His face turned ugly and he threw the phone at me. "The test results will be out soon. You better not be lying." At this point, I didn't care if he believed me or not. Maybe only seeing me die would satisfy his hatred. The only thing I couldn't let go of was Lily. There were over 10 missed calls, all from Lily and 2 from Daniel. I called Lily back, but no one answered. Daniel picked up quickly when I called him. He said Lily had gone out to look for me last night. Luckily, he had gone to deliver her birthday gift and found her. Now they were at a breakfast shop. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I'll come pick up Lily soon." After hanging up, I tried to remove the IV needle to leave. Adrian pressed me down. "Weren't you about to die just now? Now you're leaving without treatment to find someone else?" This man was strange. One moment he didn't believe I was sick, wishing for my death. The next, he wanted me to stay in the hospital for treatment. I sighed. "I told you it's terminal. There's no cure. I don't want to waste time." Adrian stared at me without speaking. His face was dark and heavy, his eyes slightly red. Looking at his stubborn expression, my head started to ache again. My throat burned painfully after a few words. We hadn't gotten along for so long. I had almost forgotten he was the type of person who wouldn't believe until he saw the coffin. "I'm really worried about Lily. If you want to see the test results, you stay here and wait." Adrian grabbed my shoulders, his gaze sharp as a knife. "Is lying to me fun? This isn't the first time. Do you think I'll believe you? I'm not letting you go. You'll pay for your lies soon." I hadn't expected that even at this point he still didn't believe me. I lowered my head, took a deep breath, and forced down the rising heat. "Yes, you've seen me like this before. Would a normal person bleed this much?" His grip on my shoulders tightened, even trembling a bit. I remembered the expression on Adrian's face when he saw me dying at the cemetery, filled with fear, confusion, and shock, spreading vividly across his face. He seemed to recall the similar incident from 6 months ago, mumbling dazedly, "Impossible! Impossible! It was just dryness." Thud, thud, thud. Knocking interrupted his denial. The doctor entered with several test results, his expression serious. "Are you Sophie? You should carry medication with you at all times given your condition. Otherwise, you could die suddenly." Adrian froze. The doctor continued, "Looking at you, it seems you're aware of your condition." He paused, sighed, seemingly accustomed to it yet regretful about life. "So young. It's best to be hospitalized. You might live a bit longer." The room fell into a deathly silence. Adrian seemed forced to confront the truth he had always avoided, his chest heaving violently. He kept repeating, "How could this be? How could this be?" I gave a calm smile. "How could it not be? All these years, you weren't the only one in pain. If it weren't for Lily, I wouldn't have been able to hold on. No one wants a tragedy to happen. If I could, I would rather have died in that car accident too." Pain flashed in his eyes, and he couldn't speak for a long time. I had no desire to revisit the past, nor any position to blame him. As I stood up to leave, he grabbed my wrist once more. I took a deep breath and turned back, irritated. "Lily is our daughter. If you don't love her, you can't stop me from—" Before I could finish, I was stunned because Adrian was crying. Not silent tears, but like a child. His nose and eyes were red, and tears fell in large drops. He looked utterly helpless, his brows and eyes filled with sorrow and grievance, and he roared, "Why won't you let me keep hating you? You say Lily is what kept you going, but what about me? What can I use to keep going? Because of my wife and daughter, my parents died. Are you the murderer, or am I the murderer for marrying you? You're going to die. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?" I watched him quietly as he vented. Neither of us could let go of Adrian's parents' deaths. Adrian hated me, hated Lily, and also hated himself. During my postpartum depression, I was prescribed many sleeping pills, some of which I kept in the bedside drawer. In less than a month, many were missing. Half were taken by me and half by Adrian. Maybe hating me was his reason for living, but this mutual torment had to end. I sighed deeply and pulled my hand back. "Then let me take that hatred with me to atone. Lily is your daughter. You are her only support. Adrian, please take care of our daughter, will you?" Adrian eventually took me to find Lily. He didn't say a word, his eyes still bloodshot from lack of rest, and the turmoil of emotions making him look utterly worn out. Lily was sitting next to Daniel, and as soon as she saw me, she ran over and threw herself into my arms. "Mommy, are you sick? I was so worried about you." I had never told Lily about my illness, and Adrian hadn't either. I glanced at Daniel. He shook his head at me. Lily gently touched my face with her small hand, her grape-sized eyes clear and bright. Mommy's face is very pale, but your eyes are red and sad. Teacher says people like that are sick. So my illness was that obvious? Then why had Adrian still refused to believe me? I forced a weak smile, rubbing Lily's hand against my face. Mommy is just very tired. Daddy is here. Didn't you always want to see Daddy? Adrian stood off to the side, unmoving, his emotions complicated. Lily didn't show the excitement she had on her birthday, holding onto my neck and burying her head into me. Mommy must be sad because of Daddy. I don't want Daddy anymore. Having just Mommy is enough for Lily. My Lily was always so smart. She understood everything. If her hand wasn't tightly gripping my clothes, I would have thought she didn't want to see Adrian. I gently patted her head. All right, Mommy is really okay. Go play with Daddy. Mommy has something to talk about with Uncle Chain. Adrian probably hadn't figured out how to face Lily yet, standing there motionless with a blank expression. I put Lily down and she cautiously approached him. Daddy, why didn't you want to come back and take pictures with Lily yesterday? The kids at kindergarten tease me saying I don't have a daddy. She didn't know about the issues between Adrian and me. The grievances of the previous generation shouldn't involve the child. I understood that. And Adrian did too. When Lily saw Adrian wasn't speaking, she took out a drawing from her backpack. It depicted 3 people, 2 adults holding a child's hands in the middle. She held up the picture for Adrian to see, speaking sincerely. It's okay. If Daddy won't take pictures, Lily can draw our family portrait herself. My heart ached, and for the first time, I felt a wave of resentment toward Adrian. My daughter was such a good child. Sometimes at night when I put her to bed, she would ask if being a little more obedient would mean she would be loved. She said she wanted to be the best behaved child, so Daddy would love her and Mommy. Adrian looked at the drawing, his body suddenly trembling. His tall frame seemed to collapse all at once. After a long while, he knelt down, took the drawing, and hesitantly held Lily's hand. Seeing the 2 of them getting along relatively well, I felt at ease and walked away. Daniel looked worried. Are you okay? I shook my head. My days are numbered. Lily will have to be taken care of by Adrian from now on. I'll need you to help keep an eye on her. After all, Adrian had no experience taking care of a child. Daniel was the only person I could trust. Hearing my words, his eyes suddenly turned red. His usually gentle eyes were tinged with sadness. Have you and Adrian talked things out? You can't leave with regrets, can you? But there were no misunderstandings between Adrian and me, just the loss of 2 close lives standing between us. I glanced at Adrian, who was already sitting with Lily, and spoke softly. This is good enough. Right now, this was enough. I couldn't ask for more. Adrian and Lily were getting along quite well. Seeing Lily's smile growing more frequent, I felt at peace. Once the last bit of business was resolved, the strength that had been keeping me going suddenly left me. It was as if I aged decades in an instant, with no strength left to get out of bed. This morning, I had planned to take Lily to school, but I woke up late and didn't rise until noon. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Adrian sitting by my bedside. I took Lily to school, he said. He looked seriously at my eyes and eyebrows. Why not try to get treatment? We both knew it was incurable. I looked at him quietly, saying nothing. After a long while, the glimmer of hope in his eyes faded, and he lowered his head slowly. Tears slid from the corners of his eyes, which he quickly wiped away. I heard his trembling voice. I was too cowardly, always blaming you for everything. If I had been kinder to you, maybe we wouldn't be here now. People say emotions drive the body. Doctors had mentioned that my illness was partly due to bad habits. I was weak and depressed after childbirth and attempted suicide multiple times without proper postnatal care, taking large amounts of medication. Several times I was pulled back from the brink of death if Adrian hadn't abandoned me during that time, but it's useless to think about it now. I sighed. Life doesn't offer many what-ifs, and I had no grounds to blame him. My chest felt tight, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to ask Adrian to get me a glass of water. When I looked up, I saw Lily standing at the door with her school bag on her back. I hurriedly put on a smile and tried to get out of bed to hug her. My legs suddenly gave way and I nearly fell. Luckily, Adrian caught me. Usually when I bumped into things, Lily would be very worried. This time, she acted as if she hadn't seen anything, hopping over to me with a bright face. "Mommy, we have an event at school this afternoon. Can you braid my hair?" I tried to move my fingers. I had no strength. I felt drained, tired, and exhausted. I thought for a moment and said to Adrian, "You braid Lily's hair. After all, you will have to do these things from now on." Unexpectedly, before Adrian could say anything, Lily suddenly shouted as if something had upset her. "I don't want to. I want Mommy to do it." These days, Lily seemed to have entered a rebellious phase. When I taught her to organize her backpack, she would throw everything around. When I taught her to put on socks by herself, she would deliberately run around barefoot. Now asking Adrian to braid her hair, she even threw the comb. How could I leave in peace with her acting like this? I was both anxious and angry, not knowing what was wrong with Lily. Adrian, too, was facing Lily's tantrum for the first time, unsure of what to do. Lily kept shouting, her fair little face turning red. "Why is Mommy pushing me to Daddy? Don't you want Lily anymore? Daddy can't braid well. I want you to braid my hair. Only you." "You child." The reprimand stuck in my throat. Seeing Lily's clingy and reluctant eyes, I suddenly understood everything. A 5-year-old child doesn't have a rebellious phase. She just sensed something was wrong and was clumsily trying to keep me. My chest ached and tears welled up. Seeing my pained expression, Lily stopped shouting, sobbing as she hugged my leg. "Mommy, don't go. Don't leave me. Lily knows Mommy is sick. Lily won't cause trouble. Please, Mommy, don't go." Adrian's eyes turned red, unable to bear the scene, and he turned away awkwardly, his fists clenched tightly. I didn't know how to respond. At this moment, explaining the meaning of death to a child seemed too cruel. "Mommy isn't abandoning you. It's just, Mommy has to leave for a while." Lily stubbornly held on, not speaking. Her tears soaked a large part of my clothes. My mind went blank. The pain in my chest made it hard to breathe. I struggled to lift my hand to wipe her tears, feeling my own tears well up. When I saw Lily's wide eyes and deep fear, I realized it wasn't tears, but blood that was flowing. I belatedly covered my nose, lowering my head to avoid scaring Lily. "Take her back to her room." Adrian pulled the struggling Lily away. Lily cried heart-wrenchingly, clutching my clothes. I comforted her. "Be good. I'll braid your hair when I get back." I broke my promise to Lily again. The first time I said I would bring Adrian home to celebrate her birthday with him. The second time I promised to come back and braid her hair. On the way to the hospital, Adrian drove very fast. He tried to comfort me while keeping his eyes on the road. An anxious driver can't drive well. When the accident happened, countless images flashed through my mind. Lily's smile, Adrian kneeling to propose to me, Adrian's parents protecting me. They all shattered into pieces, exploding before my eyes. Some pieces stabbed into my eyes, some into my back. But this time, at least I protected Adrian. With my last bit of strength, I shielded Adrian with my body. Adrian's eyes were bloodshot as he screamed desperately. In the midst of the chaos, I felt as if I had returned to the day Lily was born. No accidents, no tragedies. A tiny bundle with a loud cry. Adrian, standing outside the delivery room, sighed with relief and smiled. "Thank you, my love. I love you and I love our daughter." Adrian's parents looked at Lily, their smiles kind. We were a happy family. Sophie died. On the way to the hospital, Adrian drove too fast and got into an accident. With her last bit of strength, Sophie protected him, letting the shattered car glass cut her to pieces. Despite Adrian dragging his injured leg and rushing her to the hospital as quickly as he could, it was too late. Adrian went mad, refusing to leave her body. Whenever medical staff tried to pull him away, he would shout at them to leave. He kept mumbling, "We can't be separated. We're husband and wife. We can't be separated." Anyone who approached him was driven away. It went on until nightfall. Lily called. She asked Adrian when Mommy would come home to braid her hair. Adrian was silent for a long time. So long that Lily started to cry on the other end of the line. "It's okay. Lily is very good and won't bother Mommy." Actually, Lily has known how to braid her hair for a long time. I just wanted to be closer to Mommy. Lately, Mommy has always seemed like she wanted to leave me. 48 hours after Sophie's death, Adrian still refused to deal with it. A wife who died protecting her husband in a car accident. Such a touching story quickly made headlines after being captured by reporters. Daniel saw the news too. He tried calling Sophie first, and when she didn't answer, he went to find Lily. Lily hadn't eaten much and was starving, rummaging through the fridge for bread. Upon learning that Sophie and Adrian hadn't been home for over a day, Daniel took Lily out for breakfast and then brought her back home before heading to the hospital to find Adrian. Seeing Adrian, Daniel almost didn't recognize him. A few days ago, he was meticulously groomed. Now he was in a foul-smelling hospital room, disheveled and with dark circles under his eyes, like a mentally unstable madman. Adrian also saw Daniel, but he ignored him, just moving closer to the hospital bed for comfort. Daniel couldn't stand to see him like this. Feeling a mix of sorrow and anger, he approached Adrian, grabbed his collar, and punched him hard in the face. Adrian seemed to have no sense of pain, not reacting at all. He mechanically turned his eyes. "Finish hitting and let go. I want to be with my wife." Daniel dragged him further away. Adrian started to struggle. But he hadn't eaten, and his leg was injured, so he was no match for Daniel. He was quickly beaten down like a dead dog lying on the ground. Adrian didn't understand. Was this man in love with Sophie, blaming him for Sophie's death and venting his anger? But Sophie was always his. Adrian grinned a hideous smile. Daniel frowned, his voice cold, pushing Adrian into despair. "Adrian, you're a selfish, cowardly waste. Because of one accident, you blamed everything on Sophie, abandoning your wife and child for years. Do you know how hard it was for Sophie to take care of a child while suffering from postpartum depression? You ignored her, and now Sophie is gone. Do you want her to rest in peace or not? Lily is your daughter. She has only you left. Look at what you're doing." These words were like a bucket of cold water poured over Adrian, instantly sobering him. Adrian clutched his ears in pain, curling up on the ground. Was he a coward? After his parents' accident, he had always been avoiding it, even knowing it wasn't Sophie and Lily's fault. But he had tried to let it go, even seeing a psychologist. The doctor said he had PTSD, avoiding anything related to that incident. He had always known how hard it was for Sophie. He had seen Sophie cry while feeding the baby, seen the scars on her arms from cutting. Why did he do those awful things? He still had Lily. Sophie had entrusted Lily to him, but he left Lily alone at home. Daniel kept talking, but Adrian couldn't hear him anymore. He wished he could just die right there. Adrian eventually handled Sophie's funeral himself. While going through her belongings, he found a photo under Sophie's pillow. It was the one he had taken of her on the day they first met. Half of her right face showing a beautiful, vibrant young girl. When did such a bright person become so pale and weak? He suddenly remembered Sophie had called him. She had asked him to take a memorial photo from the right angle. And what did he say? Adrian felt the small cracks in his heart widening bit by bit, gradually becoming irreparable, causing him unbearable pain. "Daddy, is Mommy dead?" The voice from behind made him freeze. Lily stood at the door, holding her drawing of their family portrait, staring straight at Adrian. "The news said Mommy died protecting you." "I asked the teacher, and dying means a person completely disappears from this world. Mommy disappeared because of you, and she can't be with Lily anymore, right?" Adrian shuddered violently, feeling cold pain and an unknown fear spread through his body. He looked into Lily's clear eyes and saw something he was all too familiar with, the same emotion that had appeared in his own eyes many times. Hatred. Lily held up the drawing and slowly tore off the part with him in it, leaving only the part with Sophie holding her. She said, "I hate Daddy." Adrian stumbled forward to hug her, but she dodged him. It was only then that he realized, maybe at this moment he had become another Sophie, and he finally understood just how terribly wrong he had been.